A good podcasting website is an extremely essential part of building a successful podcast and monetizing it. In this episode, I'll be talking to you about 7 essentials of a good podcasting website. Hello and welcome to TPU TV. This is Dilip. If you're new here, then this is a channel where I talk a lot about podcasting and podcasting tips that are practical and simple and implementable. So if you're new here, you might want to subscribe to this channel here and click the bell notification so that you stay updated with all of the latest episodes that I release. And if you're new to podcast and you're looking to start your podcast, then you might want to join my free e-course, the 10-day e-course on how to start a podcast. You'll be able to find a link to the course in the description box below. Go ahead, click the link and join the free course. Now, podcasting website. Now, building a good podcasting website is important for any podcaster who basically wants to grow their show and have a professional online experience. Now, I always recommend a website not because it is a vanity metric or the vanity aspect involved in owning a website, but because a website is essential for you to monetize your podcast. In fact, for the monetization strategy, a website is an essential part. And I always recommend building an email list, which can only happen if you own a website. Not only that, owning a website also helps your guests verify your presence online and know more about you before they agree on coming on your show. So all of those aspects are something that I'll be talking in maybe in another video. But in this video, let me tell you about 7 essentials of a good podcasting website. Number 1, a clean and professional design. Your website should have a very clean and professional design, a design that is easy to navigate, doesn't confuse your audience or people who are visiting the website, but also has all of the relevant information handy at one place. Another aspect is that your website should also be something that is easily accessible not only on desktops, but also on mobile phone. Now, creating a website that satisfies all of this can be extremely difficult. So what I would recommend is build your website on WordPress, which is pretty easy to do. And you can use a simple drag and drop website builder theme like Thrive Themes. Thrive Themes is something that I recommend because it is pretty easy to build a website, a professional looking website using Thrive Themes. And it is a drag and drop builder. So building the website is pretty easy. So you can use something like Thrive Themes to build a website that looks professional and that helps you make a good impression not only on your listeners, but also on the podcast guests that you are wanting to invite on your show. Number 2, a clear and concise homepage. Now, the homepage of your website should be something which should give all of the relevant information to anybody who is visiting your website. Like, for example, they should know more about you, what your podcast is all about and why should they listen to your podcast, and also links to where they can find the podcast and any other relevant information about you and your podcast. Now, all of this has to be neatly laid down on the homepage so that when your website is visited by your audience and your guests, they get all of the information handy in one place. They don't have to browse through to know more about you and your podcast. So ensure you have a clear and concise homepage for your website. Number 3, an easy to use episode player. Now, your website is not only a place to showcase your authority or your credibility and about your podcast. It is also a place where you publish a post around every episode that you release. And this post should have the show notes and transcripts. And at the same time, there should be an embedded podcast player on each of these posts. Why do you need that? Because when a visitor comes to your website, you don't want to direct them to 100 different places to listen to your podcast. You want to give them a place where they can listen to their podcast on your website itself. And in order for that to happen, you will need a good embeddable podcast player. I recommend using Fusebox. Fusebox is easy, simple to use and is free, and it is an excellent podcast player. You can look at the pro version of it, which will give you a lot more options and some beautiful layouts for your podcast player. But otherwise, the free version is also extremely good. So use something like a Fusebox to embed the podcast player onto every post that you create for your podcast episode. Number 4, show notes and transcript. Now, show notes help a lot in search engine optimization. And this is something that I've already spoken about in one of my earlier videos. So if you're looking at getting new listeners through search engines, then you need to optimize your podcast and the podcasting website for search engine. And in order to do that, you will need a show notes for every episode that you release. And you can also include downloadable transcripts for your listeners, because it'll be easier for them to listen to the podcast when they are going through these transcripts. So ensure that you're publishing a post for every episode that you release. The posts have the show notes, the transcripts, and if you want to include links to any of the recommended resources, you can always do that as well. But ensure you have a specific post published for every podcast episode that you release, and that should stay on your website. Number 5, a way for listeners to subscribe. When you direct your listeners to your website, you would want to make it easy for them to subscribe to your podcast, because you're asking your listeners to subscribe to your podcast. And when they come to your website and they don't find an option to subscribe to your podcast, then they're just going to browse away. Your website is an extremely valuable resource to capture your audience. So ensure you are putting links to all of the podcast listening apps, the prominent podcast listening apps, where people can go, click and subscribe. And in addition to that, if you can also put a link to the RSS feed, that also works amazingly. What I would recommend is put links to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Prime Music, because these are the 4 primary podcast listening apps. And if your audience listens to your podcast on Good Pods, then you can also put a link to Good Pods also. But whatever you do, ensure that you have all of the links to subscribe to your podcast clearly placed on your website. Number 6, a way to contact you. Now, when listeners come to your website and they listen to your podcast or read the show notes, they might want to get in touch with you. They might want to ask questions. They might want to reach out to you for business collaboration. There could be a lot of reasons why they might want to reach out to you. So you might want to give them a clear and easy way to reach out to you or to contact you. You can do that by creating a contact us page on your website, or you can also put a clear contact us button somewhere on your website so that it is easy for them to find that and they are able to reach out to you. But whatever it is that you do, ensure that you're making it easy for people to contact you or to reach out to you. Number 7, social media integration. Today, most of the promotion for podcasting happens on social media channels. Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of these channels are the ones that help you in generating new audience. So it is important that you place links to your social media accounts or your social media profiles on your website, and that too clearly, so that people are able to see what are the social media channels that you are there on, and they'll be able to click through to those social media channels and follow you on that social media channel. So ensure that you're placing these icons for the social media channels that you are on clearly on your website. You are integrating it with your social media accounts so that people are able to find you on those profiles, on those channels, and are able to follow you. So ensure you're placing it clearly somewhere on your website. There are a lot of plugins for WordPress which will help you do that. You can make use of one of those plugins. And if you're using Thrive themes, then it is pretty easy for you to embed all of those links to the social media channels where people can follow you. Number 8, put an opt-in form in place. Now, one of the primary reasons why I recommend having a podcasting website for your podcast is in order to build a list, because there is nothing better than email marketing to engage with your audience, to reach out to your audience, and to ensure that your audience is updated about all of the newest episodes that you release, and you bring them back and make them repeat listeners. So email marketing is the best channel or best method to do that. And in order for you to do email marketing, you need to build an email list. And how will you build an email list? By using an opt-in form on your website. So put together something that you can offer for free to your listeners or to your website visitors, and use an opt-in form to capture email addresses of all of your website visitors and your listeners. Using these opt-in forms, build your email list and then do email marketing to get in touch with your listeners and stay in touch with them and engage with them. So ensure that you have a good opt-in form put together on your website. And if you don't know how to do it, once again, Thrive Themes can help you, because Thrive Themes has something called as Thrive Leads, which helps you build beautiful opt-in forms which can help you capture email addresses of your listeners. So Those were 8 essentials of a good podcasting website. And I'm hoping that you enjoyed this information that I shared with you today. If you did, then do click the thumbs up button below so that others can find this episode and benefit from them. And if you're new to podcasting, please do join the free 10-day e-course that I have on my website, which will teach you how to get started with your website. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click the bell notification so that you stay updated with the latest episodes that I release. And do recommend this channel to your friends who are interested in knowing more about podcasts. That is all that I have for this video. I'll be back again the next week with another interesting practical information around podcasting. Until then, keep watching TPU TV. This is goodbye from Dilip. You all have a wonderful rest of the week.